Welcome to the Lair of the Visionary, where I show you how to build your very own props. So, being that I'm a huge fan of Star Wars, and with the release of Rogue One in theaters, I figured it appropriate for us to make the Imperial Stormtroopers E-11 blaster rifle. So let's begin. For this build you'll need pencil or pen, scissors, box cutter, hot glue gun and glue sticks, cardboard, paper towel tubes, EVA foam, Mentos container, popsicle sticks, clothespin, and paint. Before we begin, you're going to need these templates for the blaster. If you have difficulty drawing your own, you can get a copy of the ones pictured here from the description down below. You're also going to need lots of reference photos for the blaster. To start off, taking some paper towel tubes, or PVC pipe if you don't have thick enough tubes, I hot glued two together. This will be the barrel of the blaster. Then, to cover up the visible seams and crevices on the tubes, taking some newspaper clippings and some regular white glue, I glued the clippings over the barrel like the way you see here. Then taking the template marked 1, I trace it onto some cardboard, then flipped it over and trace it out once again. Then taking our trusty scissors, I cut the traced pieces out. Then, setting those pieces aside, taking the template marked 2, I traced it out onto a piece of EVA foam. Then taking a box cutter, I cut the traced piece out. Then taking the cardboard pieces we made earlier, I hot glued one of them onto one side of the EVA foam piece. Then taking a clothespin, that I cut down to a smaller size, I hot glued it onto the foam piece like the way you see here. Then, I hot glued the other cardboard piece onto the other side of the foam piece. Then, I cut a slot into our barrel in order to make the handle of the blaster fit into place. So then, I hot glued the handle 19.5 centimeters from the back end of the barrel. Then, I cut and hot glued a long piece of cardboard, 2.5 centimeters in width around a large bottle cap. Then in turn, hot glued the piece onto the back end of the barrel. Then, using a long piece of cardboard, I hot glued a trigger guard into place. And then, taking a Mentos container that I cut in half, I hot glued some cardboard around it, as seen here, and then in turn hot glued it onto the blaster, like the way you see here. You're also going to want to make sure that the piece is angled towards the front end of the barrel. Then, taking the template mark 3, I trace it onto a piece of cardboard, then cut it out. Then, using the indicator lines on the template, I bent the sides on our piece upward. Then, taking two strips of cardboard, 31 by 1.5 centimeters in size, I hot glued the cardboard strips onto both sides of the piece we made using template 3. Then, I cut an old pencil down to about 3.3 centimeters in length, and hot glued it in between the two cardboard strips on the other side of the piece we made using template 3. Then hot glued the entire piece under the blaster body. I also used super glue to help reinforce it. I then traced and cut out a long piece of EVA foam, 20.5 by 2 centimeters in size, and then hot glued it to the top of the blaster, exactly 16.5 centimeters from the front end of the barrel. Then, taking some popsicle sticks, I hot glued 5 of them around the blaster, 3 centimeters from the front end of the barrel. I also equally spaced the popsicle sticks about 1 centimeter away from each other. I also hot glued into place the forward and rear sights using a popsicle stick and some cardboard. Then for the scope, Taking an old paint bottle cap and a cylindrical shape that I had laying around, you could also just use an old marker, I hot glued the paint cap onto the front of the cylindrical piece. Then, taking a long strip of cardboard, 4 centimeters in width, I wrapped and hot glued the piece around one end of our cylindrical piece, then in turn, hot glued the completed scope onto the blaster. Oh, and for the shell ejection port, one thing I forgot to show you was, I cut out a section on the side opposite to the blaster's power pack. Then later when we're done painting it, you're going to want to shove a smaller cardboard tube that we painted silver down the barrel of the blaster in order to fill in the shell ejection port. And now for the paint. I began by giving the blaster 2 coats of a flat black, and then followed by a coat of gloss plastic spray. So you'll probably notice that if you're using reference photos for the blaster, that there are some slight differences between ones used in the films, and that no two are exactly alike. What I'm referring to mainly is the scope power unit, that little box-looking thing on the side of the blaster, which seems to be present on some blasters but not on others. Now for me personally, I modeled mine after the way it looked in Star Wars Battlefront, which didn't have the power unit. But if you want to add that part on, all you have to do is cut 2 pieces of EVA foam, 5 by 3.5 centimeters in size, then hot glue them side by side, then in turn hot glue them onto the side of the blaster. And we're done. And that's how you make an E-11 blaster rifle. Huh. Thanks for watching. I finally hit it.